So get together, have a few laughs. Thanks for the advice.
Well, you wanted the quiet life, John. Dead batteries, empty streets.
Video?
You know, the fact that we did it during COVID times, and at the time, listening to the folks, particularly from John's company, sounded like not a whole lot of work had been going on in Hollywood. So that was a rare production at the time. So I think there's some interest there.
For sure. All right, we have Professor Gilyard. There he is. Hello.
Professor Gilyard, how are you?
Blessed. Yeah, blessed. And you?
I'm very excited. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to close the semester of Industry versus Artistry with this great.
Yeah, what a wonderful opportunity, huh?
And
hello, everybody from Advanced Auto and the world out there.
Hey, Clarence, how are you?
I'm blessed. And you, sir?
Living the dream.
Sir, how are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks again for inviting my team. It's really
no. What's really important is that we pass on this generosity, because your time is precious. I get that. Sometimes the young ones don't know that, but there's a reality to
but as you and I both discussed last time, is like this is the best part of it, and we can sort of help the future of both the industry and great society. This is sort of this becomes so more important than anything, right? When you get to this stage of life, right?
Well, if you have kids running around the household, or you have young ones that you mentor, you begin to realize that they do need access. They need access to information.
That's right.
Boots on the ground, frontline information.
And Kyle Soehngen, one of our alumni who graduated from AFI, who directs commercials, is also joining us, and we asked him to come by, and so
Hi, Kyle. Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you as well. See a few familiar faces. Hey there, Clarence.
Kynan. Hey, Kyle.
And I have John Suits. Fabulous, fantastic. We can go ahead and somehow I got Julia. How is that possible? Bye, Julia.
Yeah, Matt Williams is on the screen there too, on my screen anyways.
Yes, he is. Yeah. So on the screen, class, we have, if you go on the spotlit grid, we have Miss Wendy Bloom, and I'll let everybody introduce themselves in terms of what they do and how they how they fit into this particular commercial endeavor to bring the cast of DieHard into the brand of DieHard batteries. So Wendy, welcome.
Sure, absolutely. Hello and good afternoon. My name is Wendy Bloom. I am Vice President of Marketing with Advanced Auto Parts. I report to Jason McDonald, who you'll meet in just a moment, our CMO. My leadership responsibilities within marketing include brand DieHard. So this particular campaign was one of, I would call it my most important baby of 2020. We do have multiple team members who worked on this both internally with our company, and certainly a whole host of collaborators from our agency. But this was definitely one of our very key projects for 2020. Lovely to be here with all.
Welcome. Jason, we had a chance to talk on the phone, and you were telling me a lot of interesting things, which we'll sort of unpack for the students that are here with us today. Let's hear a little bit about what you do, and maybe we talked a little bit about where the idea came about, and maybe you can lead us there.
Yeah, sure. So Jason McDonald, I'm a chief marketing officer, and I lead our e-commerce business at Advanced Auto Parts. and been in marketing for majority of my career. I started in marketing when I was 21, 22, maybe as a co-op student in Canada, actually. But this project really came with the acquisition of the DIEHARD brand. The DIEHARD brand, Advanced Auto Parts, bought the brand in December of last year. And we then decided, obviously, we then integrated it into our business model, and we launched it in United States, formidably in the Advanced Auto Parts retail outlets in July, right just prior to July 4th. And we launched it just with our base campaign. And but we had another trick up our sleeve, which is just prior to the launch of DieHard in the United States. We were working on this other idea with the marketing arm. So we knew that if we were going to do something big and bold, like the brand is, that let's go forward. Let's try something a little bit bold. And we challenged one of our best partners in the marketing arm to help bring us an idea. So that's where it all started. And I'm really excited to be here as well. Like Wendy said, hopefully we can unpack some of that story. Hopefully I teased you enough with it, and you can just keep asking me questions from there. But
Would you like to guide me as to who to introduce next?
Oh, sure. How about you go to, why don't you go to Nick?
Nicholas Chernock, welcome to the class, sir.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jason, and hi, Wendy, and hi, John, and hi, Clarence, and Matt, everybody else I know. I do apologize if I sound a little weird today. I had a little bit of a sinus surgery earlier in the week, so I'm trying to speak through that. But I'm with the agency partner that Jason mentioned, TMA, and I was the writer on the spot, and very happy to have been engaged by the Advanced Auto Parts team to work on such an amazing project. We had our work cut out for us when they came to us and asked for something big and bold. And it was pretty amazing to work with everybody to, I hope, deliver that. I think we all feel pretty good about what we did. But yeah, I mean, just, reintroducing this brand, which has a legacy, in concert with a film brand that has a legacy, was really an honor to work on. And it seems so appropriate for this class, just kind of the mix of, how did you put it, industry and art.
You're right, industry versus artistry.
Yeah, so we really hope, I think, and I'm sorry, this is something that John Suits will probably speak to as well. We really hope this was a great mix of both of those, and we hope that the convergence of the two could, not just be artistic, but really, drive industry forward for our partner, Advanced Auto Parts.
Welcome to the class. And Matt, I'm going to go to you. Welcome to the class, Matt. Tell us a little bit
thanks.
About how the umbrella production of this worked, and when you became involved. Was it this year, or did you already know in 2019 that you were going in this direction?
No, I do remember that Friday afternoon getting a call from Nick and some other guys at our agency that we were going to do this. So it was very exciting. But again, I'm Matt Will. I'm a producer with the agency, and what a producer does is a broad question, but I work with the client, I work with creative, I work with account, I work with our production team, I work with Suits below me, and we've worked on a lot of other projects. So again, yeah, it was very exciting, and I'm sure we're going to uncover a lot of the production details later, but just very glad to be here today.
Great. Well, being a film school, we teach a lot about collaboration, but we can't help but have the ghost of auteurism hovering above us and really giving the credit to the director. And you're going to unpack for us, Mr. John Suits, how much of that happens when you direct a commercial. let's welcome John Suits to the class, and tell us a little bit about how you got into commercials and how you got into this specific commercial, John.
Yeah, so I started off, hi everyone, thanks for having us. I started off in independent film and then got into commercials about 4.5 years ago. And then now that's predominantly what I've been doing. And this was such a fun opportunity. And I know I was very grateful to the marketing arm and to Advanced Auto Parts for this opportunity. And I've said it to them many times, but it's just sort of, usually when you're doing commercials, you're trying to figure out like, which little thing are you going to push for? Like what, are you going to try to get, an extra like jib or like what the lenses. And on this one, it was kind of like, we just threw everything at it. And that was really fun for us. And then I think from my side, we have the cinematographer and EP, Amanda and Will as well. I don't know who we want to go to next, but yeah.
Are they here?
Yes, they're here as well. Yeah.
Okay. So could you?
Maybe Amanda, do you want to say hi?
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks for having us.
Yes, great.
And so, do you work with John in other productions, or do you work with Matt?
Yeah, so I work with John at Natural Selection, which is his company, but we have a pretty long relationship with Matt and the TMA team.
Great. Well, and you said we had somebody.
Yeah, Will Stone.
Hey guys. Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. How are you doing, man?
Welcome.
It's great to be here. Yeah, I'm excited.
Great. And we have somebody else?
Harris Wilkinson as well. And
hello, guys.
Being a VJ in the age of Zoom is one of the pleasures of teaching. Oh, Clarence, you're right in the middle of the Brady Bunch. That is fabulous. So Harris, welcome to the class. Remind us so you work with John as well?
I have worked with John a tremendous amount. It's almost hard to imagine not working with John, but I'm an SVP of creative at TMA. My background's as a copywriter, but I tend to get involved with a lot of the productions. It's a lot of my background is with, well, film and television, but also broadcast commercials. So came on board this kind of like midstream, and then Nick and I really had worked together, and then obviously seeing it through production. And I think Nick covered the most salient points. It was a thrill, and even especially during COVID, like sort of holding our breath for weeks and months with Wendy and Jason and the team, and kind of, can we pull this off? And it was a tremendous experience. And I think even more so this year than it would have normally been. It would have been tremendous any year, but to have kind of pulled this off in 2020 for all of us is, small. We kept saying it was a Christmas miracle. I think Wendy's going to cry. It looks like she's going to cry. But glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Well, it is our pleasure to have seen the work, have seen Clarence go out to do the work, and then getting a chance on its launch to be able to watch it. And we're going to do that just now.
Well, you wanted the quiet life, John. Dead batteries, empty streets.
Theo?
Welcome to Advanced Auto Parts.
I need one of those. Is there another way out? Come on. You kidding me?
Did you know we have free installation?
Yeah, I got it.
Mac? Argyle? You still driving this thing?
You're getting blood on the seats, Mac. Good God. Oh man, I just paid this off.
Argyle, you all right? We're getting out of here, buddy. Just gotta change my battery.
Now get up. Yeah, baby. Happy trails. Get out of here. Keep this car moving.
Hey, that's my line.
DieHard batteries, owned and sold by Advance and CarQuest Auto Parts.
Now that we have social media, a commercial exists in not only a 30-second length, right? They can be of all sorts of lengths. How did you arrive at these 2 minutes?
Maybe I'll start. Is that all right, guys, folks? Like I'll start. I think, well, first of all, if I can answer that question just a bit on the journey, just to tell everyone a bit of the story, back to sort of I was talking to you about the other day, because I think it's help in the story of what you present, how this comes to shape. So obviously, I mentioned earlier around DieHard is a really big brand, and it's an iconic brand. And when we looked at this brand, said, okay, you need to do the type of advertising that almost towards in the commercial production that this brand deserves. Okay. So which is a different mindset. It's not about, you have to balance the sale of a product with the quality of the production that a brand like this deserves. You say that because of the iconic nature of this brand and what it has stood for. Back in the 80s, but even more recently, this brand was known as Super Bowl advertising, right? Whether it be bold imagery on Super Bowl advertising that just was arresting and had stopping power. So then the brand stands for things that are like, this boldness of reliability, durability, and power. So when we came to, and Wendy and I in particular, we were looking at it, we said, one, we need to make sure that we give a piece of creative or find this creative that gives it the boldness it deserves. So I've had personal experience with working with the marketing arm, which a bunch of these folks have worked with in the past. I know their capability of doing boldness. And when we make a statement like this, which was legitimately, I don't remember, Wendy, if we put it in the brief, but I know we said it, which was we gave them a creative brief that talked about what the brand was about, what the brand stood for, what its role it plays with the consumer, but the words that were the most important that they embraced were "make me uncomfortable." Okay, and that, as I've worked in marketing for 25 years, is the license for a creative to play. So, and it's a little bit of saying, okay, I have a client that's willing to be bolder than what they normally would be, from what my past experience was. So that's when we engaged Harris and Nick, and we specifically started talking to them and their team about a concept. And they then came back to us with a variety. They usually come back with 2 or 3 ideas. And in a normal way, they tell us they love all the ideas, but the reality is we ask them to pick one, and then they tell us they love them all, and that's how all this works. But they showed us one idea. I'm a DieHard fanatic. Okay, so for me, when we saw, and I remember Wendy and I texting back and forth, when we saw the one script that paralleled the history of DieHard with this play, I got goosebumps. Okay, so it was a moment where I was like, okay, whoa, this is pretty good. And then they showed us, to your question, they showed us that we think that this could fit great as a 2-minute, but we think we can cut it down into 30s and 15s and 6s, as well as imagery shots, so that then we can totally have a fully integrated plan. And that's for someone on my side. I'm thinking about all the different ways that we can do that. Okay, so we're trying to get this fully integrated marketing plan, because I can't just use a 2-minute, or I can't just use a 6-second pre-roll into YouTube. I gotta have a variety.
So I'm sorry, where would a 6-second spot be playing? I must be seeing them all over the place, but
yeah, it does pre-roll. So it's pre-roll, predominantly pre-roll to videos on YouTube or on any digital source is when we would use it.
Oh, okay.
Instagram stories now too, the vertical stories on Instagram. Those ads are typically 6.
Yeah. So one of the stories I told, and Clarence remember the story, I told this story literally, and I said, I think Wendy and I chatted after that presentation, and I said, Wendy, I think we got to go talk to Tom.
Yeah, it was something like that. Tom is the CEO, guys.
And it's all on Zoom, right? I said, we got to go talk to Tom. And like Matt said earlier, like he was probably waiting to see if we'd buy the script. But I actually called my boss up, who's the CEO, and said, do you mind if I come over? And it was COVID. So that in itself is risky. And we had to make sure we talked outside, social distance. And Wendy and I took him on the phone, took him through the concept or the idea around it and said, this is something we should lean in on. And he, when you have the backing of your senior leader, that gives you permission to go for it, and literally turned and said, okay, let's go for it. So that's sort of the rest is history. After that, we went back to the agency, gave some feedback, and then I'll pause because I just thought I'd tell that story because that's a little bit of the beginnings before I guess the rest of the story, so to speak.
Part of the press that you're getting, part of the positive notices you're getting is people online saying things like, this is like a Super Bowl ad, but not during Super Bowl season. So how much of that was part of the strategy or how much of that was part of your calculus?
I'll jump in on this one. Obviously, when we were planning our media strategy and how to actually launch this with maximum impact, we wanted to be able to create our own Super Bowl moment on the biggest stage possible, relevant to our target, who tends to be, male car owners, 40 plus, right? We also have to consider the seasonality of our business, and in the automotive battery business, coming into mid-October is when, in many areas of the country, we start to see a significant increase in sales due to weather. So we worked with our media agency to figure out what might be the best stage to be able to launch on. And turns out it was NFL on Fox on a Sunday, and definitely pleased with the level of ratings we got. And I think the fact that it was unique in that it was a 2-minute spot. You rarely see that in broadcast these days. And the fact that it was the only spot like that, not just on that day, but really in this whole time period before and after, I think garnered it a lot of additional attention, which is nice because the level of impressions that we've gotten all over the digital universe is crazy.
Yeah, I wonder how you measure the success of something like this. I mean, there must be data. I mean, you're clearly happy with the product, it seems, as a team, but how do you measure this? Because there's so many ways to do that, I think, with any project.
Yeah, well, those of us who are the marketers, for sure, success looks like driving sales and market share. And so far, so good. We still have, a ways to go, but so far, so good. But from a marketing standpoint and our marketing objectives and our media objectives, we do set awareness targets. We set reach targets, et cetera. So we do have a lot of data at our disposal, particularly when it comes to all things digital. So we do, on a periodic basis, follow up with our agency teams to take a look at what those results are.
I was wondering about that because you're talking about sales and market share, but that sort of lags, right? That there might be some time before you really know that. So in the meantime, it's impressions and media notices, or how does that work?
Yeah, so what you do is so part of it is when you embark on an idea like this, you want to make sure that you're capitalized, that you're building the idea on what you're going to use it for. And this for us is, we knew that we were not going to just develop a film, which I think is what occurred, for one moment. It was developing a piece of creative that was going to live for a longer period of time. So really our success metrics were mostly on the effectiveness of the campaign, of the entire campaign. And I was, and I think we were very focused on making sure that that was the case. and all the rest of it, you don't bank on, candidly. I would say you don't bank on the rest of it in terms of media impressions in the other. You make sure you build a plan for it, but you don't bank on it because of
DieHard for DieHard batteries.
Well, you wanted the quiet life, John. Dead batteries, empty streets.
Welcome to Advanced Auto Parts.
I need one of those.
Done it for you!
Happy trips.
Keep this car moving. Whoa!
Hey, that's my line.
DieHard batteries, owned and sold by Advance and CarQuest Auto Parts.
Yeah, I'll just jump in, kind of back on the plan and the impressions. Obviously, pulling this off and getting our partners in Advance to, essentially move forward with an idea, that's a huge win, right? Especially one where, we're going to be able to put a 2-minute piece of creative on broadcast, right? That's nearly unheard of these days.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we were able to work with a piece of IP like the DieHard franchise and roll it out in a way that was able to, we think, surprise people with the teaser campaign and things like that. The number of impressions we were able to drive in a very short amount of time, that for us was a really just amazing sign. The collaboration between us, Advanced Auto Parts team, some of our other agency partners like the media agency and PR agency that we were also working with, the fact that it all came together to us, I think that's one big sign of success, at least on the rollout, right? Because it meant that everything landed in the way that we wanted it to. So we were set up for the best case scenario of success after that. Like I said, I still, first and foremost, pulling it off in a year like this, I think was kind of like the biggest end zone there could have been. Just seeing it completed was huge for us.
Right. So I have the same question for Natural Selection. That's Amanda and John and Will, the production company. Like, how do you measure that success? But since Nick was talking about that, had you been doing a lot of production during lockdown? Has that been, or have you been taking a break?
Well, it's a good question. I think before this job, it'd been about 4 or 5 months, of hanging out and getting excited about it once we got it. But it was, there wasn't any production happening. And I'll let Amanda speak to it. I know with the COVID, and Matt also was really instrumental in working on that with us. But it's a massive undertaking figuring out how to do this during COVID. And Amanda, I don't know if you want to speak about, I think you might be scarred by it, but if you want to speak
this was our first project back from COVID. Obviously, we're based out of LA, and production sort of shut down in LA in March. And even when we were looking at locations for this, a lot of them weren't available just because the corporations that owned them hadn't come back yet. And there was a lot more hoops to jump through than there would be traditionally, where we had to give every location like our production plan in terms of COVID. So it was definitely interesting. Since then, we've done a few projects, and this definitely helped us develop a good system for that too.
Mm-hmm. So there's guidelines from the guilds and other stakeholders that have been put out. I mean, how helpful have those been? Or I guess you still have to personalize that and figure it out for yourselves how it's going to work.
Yeah, I think on this, we were a union across the board. So that was helpful in that it gave us a pretty limited sandbox. We had a lot of rules to follow, versus when you're non-union, it's sort of a little bit more flexible, which is both a blessing and a curse, where you then have to decide yourself what you're going to do. But yeah, it involved, a lot of testing, a lot of PPE, a lot of social distancing, a lot more space we needed just for catering even. So a lot of weird small details that went into this.
Is it like the actors are in an A zone and other people are sort of listed? Could you explain what that is? It sounds kind of mercenary, of putting people's safety in terms of first place, second place, third place. But how does that work?
It's not even. So the A zone is basically anyone who's close to the actors once they take their masks off. And obviously Clarence can speak to that too, since he was in the A zone. But so there's people who need to be close to the actors and people who don't. And so if you don't need to be close to the actors, you're considered sort of in the B zone. So you're less likely to cross-contaminate. So, because you're not around people with not without masks, you're able to social distance, you're able to keep all your PPE. Like it's just a different testing requirement where people in the A zone are at a higher risk, and so you have to test them more frequently. Is the main difference.
So Clarence, what was that like for you? I think you were talking about that with us before you were able to tell us what kind of project you were working on. I remember you talking about being in Los Angeles and having to adapt your working style to these different, COVID zones. So,
me personally, it was nothing that I would discuss, but when I finally got to the set the first day, I like to get there early, and I wanted to be a bit incognito so I could look at everything from varied lenses. One, because I was on the dime, but two, as an educator and as a director. So I was just watching it, and the first impression was when what are they called? Santa Set. The group is called Santa Set. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Santa Set was a company we engaged to do our COVID safety on set.
They descended upon me rather rapidly. That there was protocol in itself that needed to be adhered to. The other thing is that the way I personally work, and this is for the actors and directors, I like to get a sense of the space that I'm in, whatever character I'm playing and whatever scene I'm doing, so that I get a sense of resonance, and I hear my voice, my big voice and my little voice. And so that I had to take into consideration that there were some people that I couldn't, in a sense, play with, moving from in front of the camera to waiting for them to set up. And so there was a flow that I had to adjust to creatively, for whatever it's worth. I'm that kind of actor, and I like to play and hear my voice and get a sense of my rhythm before I move into the space to do the stuff. And John was like doing 1,000 things at the same time. So to have some type of interaction with him on a project like this, I had to sort of pick and choose opportunities to and really kind of close down the amount of talk, but just get to the point. John, can I have food, for example? You remember that, John?
Yeah, the toast. That's great. Yeah.
Exactly. But those kind of things, I became aware that because of the COVID and all of those distancing things, just had to adjust. And I'm sure that I'm no different than other actors who try to work naturally that way.
Right. Some actors will like to explore the next day's set, or something like that if it's available, and maybe if something is available down, and go look at your diner while you're working on the other stuff, and that might not be available necessarily in COVID times.
Yeah, I like to explore relationships verbally, so that I can just move into the relationship that's going on in front of the camera. Go over there and sit in that diner. And we're coming around to you.
I also wonder, Clarence, if it was weird. I mean, you are so incredible, obviously, to work with, and it was amazing how you're able to channel it immediately, and gave us so many awesome options. And honestly, picking your takes was really hard because there was so much fun stuff to choose from. Yeah. But I think another part that I imagine is really weird for you is anytime you took your mask off, a red alarm, a red light would flash, and an alarm would go off, and we all had to put these giant face shields on. So everybody that's talking to you has face shields on everywhere. And I just wonder if that was a little off-putting as well.
In its own way. I mean, because it is what it is, right? These are the circumstances we're working under. But getting in the machinery, and then having these, because like I say, when you're trying to work truthfully and you're looking at these masks and these reflections, and John, I don't know where the hell you were, but your voice was like this clarion call from somewhere. And so, I had to say, okay, the director is, you know what I'm saying? You have to relate to the guy, but where the hell is the guy, right? And you were like, we probably did 20, 25. I mean, we just went on all of these options, and then the levers, get that out of here, right? So it's fun, right? And that's what an actor looks for. But once again, the circumstances of COVID, because I can't talk to the people around like I would normally talk to the people around, you know, the people that are setting up the shot and all this. I can't talk to them. Anyway.
So Jason, when did you know that not only was it going to be John McClane, but also Theo, who is beloved in that first film because he's smarter than all of them put together, and then Argyle, who ends up punching Theo at the end. When did you know that that was the perfect triangle of Die Hard to bring back? Do you remember where that came in?
For me, it was the moment when seeing the script, because it was board and they semi-boarded it. When reading the script, it got through it already checked boxes for me on its passion towards what the brand stood for. It already showed the integration of advanced auto parts, but then when it showed that John McClane was coming into connection with his past, so like it sort of came across so slowly in its planning. Like he sees Theo, then he sees henchmen that look like that may have been designed to get there by Theo, and then he literally runs into Argyle. It just started to come where it's like it was building, constantly building. And then when you see the final product, I love how it, even when I saw it again today, is, you know, you see the final product and even how the music builds toward it. It was like constantly building towards it. But for me, I got the excitement when I saw the past characters because of my fascination over the Die Hard series. And that connected it to an element of authenticity. Then it was all about hope, and hope meaning, can we get them to be in the film? And then when it all came together, it was magical.
And so you, Mr. Suits, John, when you got the project, had they all agreed to sign off on it, or was it if we can get?
That's a great question, and maybe Matt or Harris or Nick may be able to answer that better than I can. I don't know if they were officially on enough. I was like, this is awesome, but I don't know, to be honest with you.
We were zeroing in on signed contracts. I'll vouch for that one.
We had to have some contingency plans for the characters, for sure. Nick can speak to that as well. But not everything was locked. It was very helpful. The talent department was working. I mean, the talent department were kind of the unsung heroes in this and kind of pulling it all together as well. For sure.
So this is interesting for the students. You know, they want to tell visual stories. They have a professor who was in an iconic film like Top Gun, an iconic franchise like Die Hard, and then went on to Matlock and Walker, Texas Ranger, and they get to interface with him 2 or 3 times a week. So it's actually impactful for them to hear their parents talk about, oh, you're being taught by Clarence Gilyard. And so as much as Clarence doesn't want me to shine a light on him, it's my job as his fellow educator who I work with. When I saw Die Hard, I said, I want to work with this guy. I didn't realize it was going to be every Wednesday for the rest of my life, you know, and it's really a privilege to have him impart the art and craft of performance with our directing students, with our acting students, with our collaborators, and the impact it has on creating the genuine nature of our program. John Suits, I was wondering, I don't know, I want to say John, but then I just figured it's going to get lost and someone else is going to answer. So yeah. I'm using your full name. I was wondering when you actually saw the first Die Hard. Was that like you were a kid? Do you remember?
It's a funny thing, like it's something I watched a ton growing up. So I can't remember this first time specifically, but probably way younger than I should have been is why I can't remember. But I watched it a ton growing up and was such a big fan of the whole franchise. And so that's why when this opportunity, when there's the potential for, you know, getting to be involved, I was just so excited and was like, you know, and I know I called Will, who I work with a lot, and Amanda's like, this sounds crazy. Like, there's no way they're going to be able to pull this off. But like, if this is real, this is like a dream come true. And I think that was kind of how we all felt. So it was like, we all were like, we're willing it to happen, you know, and yeah.
So I'm going to take you a little further into the rabbit hole. If you are a fan of the movies, and maybe it will happen, maybe it won't, what are your first meetings with Clarence or with Bruce? Do you see them before the first day? Do you see them the day before? There's not really a read through in commercials.
Yeah, so Clarence, luckily, we ran into each other getting our COVID test. So we got to say hi and talk for a bit. While both started keeping our distance and like, hey, might have put an elbow out. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, so we were very fortunate that we got to see each other at our COVID test team site, so Santa set, and had a talk then. And then also, I think what was nice is that even though when he was sneaking around a little early, like I think we got to see each other a couple times and talk. So we had some time to talk before like it was on as close-ups, and that was really nice that we had that opportunity. But yeah, it's definitely, it's weird anyway in commercials, but then when you're dealing with COVID, there's that extra layer of like nobody can see each other, so it's like every time you're talking, you're like, I think this is okay, and you're also kind of looking around like if someone's going to yell at you, like you're out of your zone or something. So it's definitely a different way of working for sure. But that's what was great is I think, Clarence and I got to talk a bunch of times, just periodically in like little bits here and there.
He came back.
I think that's because, Francisco, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. And it's just important for me, because the writer's here, right? The writer is on board today, right? Am I wrong?
And where are they? So
I definitely want that person to weigh in. But I'm a writer actor. If the writer's on the set, I'm looking for him, and nobody directed me that direction. So God bless that person for not having me, stalk them. And I'm wondering if the movie the first Die Hard was even released in Canada, Jason.
Yeah, it was.
I'm joking, of course. But John, that you sort of turned around. I said, because as soon as I get there, I go, where's the director? I always do that. And somebody said, well, yeah, he's getting his COVID test. I go, oh my gosh. And so I know you were surprised, John, when I said, hi, John, it's Clarence. And you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, because you were running to 3 different places at the exact same time. I know you were. And I just, for me, with, the journey that I've been on, if somebody's got to be watching my ass, because it's my face that's up there. So if I don't have a relationship with that guy, that gal, then I'm feeling very vulnerable. I just need to say that.
I got to tell you, John, that he came back from doing this, and he was very impressed with the amount of energy that you brought to the project. I mean, like more than impressed. And I was wondering if I could talk to all your team, because I think at some point in production, you didn't at the age of 8 say I want to direct commercials, right? Or even at the age of 15, you weren't really thinking that you were going to make movies. Is that what did you see yourself doing?
Yeah, and that's kind of I did an independent film up until 4.5 years ago was the first time I sort of got into commercials. So that was most of my career, and then it actually was having my second kid. Was trying to figure out something that wasn't as time consuming in terms of like the 2 months being away and stuff, and was trying to get into commercials, and luckily was fortunate enough to get into it. So, but I enjoy it way more now, which is funny because I think when you're at film school all the time, you think more about film. I know I did, but for me now, like, because I still do film occasionally, but I can tell you for sure, and I think Harris is laughing because he knows how much I enjoy commercials more than film these days. It's it just works a lot better for you at a certain point in life. And also you can tell these great stories in a much more condensed, amount of time. And you get that instant gratification of you complete it and it's out in the world very quickly. Whereas with a film, you complete it and then like 2 years later it comes out. And at that point you kind of like usually never want to see it again, by the time it's out. So it's a very different process, that way as well. And Will and Amanda and I, that we kind of all are similar, that we've done film and commercials. And Will and I have done two features together very well. Yeah, and then also been doing commercials.
So the turnaround must be incredible, because a film can take 3-4 years from writing all the way to the festival. And here you are, you start this and you're able to see rumor Willis post Die Hard's going to be back, and you see everybody sort of be anticipated, and it comes out and it pops, and here we are. I think one of the things that film schools are being taken a test to is how do you make it sustainable for the students? And you sort of talked about that directly as it related to family, but I'm wondering about your collaborators as well. What is it about loving cinema, but also being able to reap the rewards of the commercial world that makes it good for you? So I open this to John, and please, all of you in the production side of it, talk about, beyond the money, and is it being able to have the production cycle be quicker? Harris, I'm going to toss it to you, because otherwise maybe you'll.
Well, it's funny because I studied creative writing in college, and I actually started in advertising. Advertising was all I ever wanted to do. And then I kind of fell into script writing, and it's what got me to move to LA originally. Was I sold a screenplay to Universal, I had no idea what I was doing. I got very lucky, I think. And then I parallel pathed for years, and I can echo John's sentiment. Even when we started working together, I've had, some luck with features and TV, but it is such, it's a hard road. And I liked balancing the two worlds, because with commercials, although it's a different kind of artistry, I think this project index is way higher on the artistry side, because honestly, and thanks not just to natural selection, but also a lot of thanks really to our clients who were, Jason likes to say you're welcome, but I cannot say enough thank yous for their sort of the latitude they gave us to kind of really make something special. But even outside of that, with commercial work, you do get a much quicker completion. And I think anyone who goes into these types of fields, the driver is to make a thing. You want to create something. And the challenge with film and TV, which anyone, will tell you, is you spend a lot of time trying. You spend a lot of time writing. Even just the writing of a thing, creating a 2-minute piece is very different than writing, a 100-page screenplay or a 22-page teleplay. So I've just always liked the two. I think the long form narrative, exercises your brain in a different way and has its own challenges. But the beauty of commercial work is you can bring in that skill set and that sort of storytelling in a very compact way that's servicing a purpose, and that purpose is what drives it to completion. A brand has a message to get out there, so they can't they can't shift your date and say, oh, we're going to move this to a spring release. That doesn't happen. They've got an objective, they've got a sales goal, and they have to get the work out there. And so it helps it get done faster, and there's a joy in that too.
The documentary filmmaker Errol Morris, who's one of the best,
Right.
He says a lot of his peers talk about, oh, I'm doing a commercial and I'm slumming it and I really hate it. But he says that he loves doing commercials because it's like a puzzle for him, and all of those time restraints for him that he doesn't have in the doc world. And how do you fit this piece there and there?
Yeah, and he's done, it's interesting, he's a great example, because he's done, he did a massive campaign for Taco Bell, and he reinvented Miller High Life. He's done really interesting commercial work. But if you knew his film work, you might not put those two together. It would catch you off guard, but I think there's artistry to both, for sure. Yeah, it's a great story.
And there's toys available to you, right, John, that maybe in an indie film you won't get to have 2 techno cranes and any number of things at your disposal. You might get a techno crane for a day or two, but here it seems like there's no limit to what your cinematographer can ask for. Is that fair in terms of?
And I'll let him speak to that. But yeah, I think that's what's great is we had 4 days to shoot this, and the movie we had done the year before, we had 15 days for a whole movie. So it's really fun from that, in that respect, that you can actually really unleash and try to focus in a way you can't when you're doing a movie where it's much more, you're just, unless you're doing a really big budget movie, you're on this kind of just adrenaline, go feeling. And Will, do you want to kind of talk to Will had lots of fun ideas and things to bring to the table on this.
Toys is definitely a thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and so first off, I want to say there's no such thing as toys. They're all tools.
Yes, sir.
Don't let anyone who wants to be a cinematographer, don't let anyone tell you it's a toy, because it's a tool. But anyways, I'm talking to you. So it wasn't. It's all scalable. So obviously, when you're on a 15-day movie and you were trying to shoot out Bruce Willis, even though he's in 60 scenes for, 3 days, like that's a whole different ball game, but it's all scalable. So it's not like on this commercial, I was like, oh, well, I need 20 condors and 15 18Ks and they can all go here. It was, we still had to try to find the right approach to maximize what we had. But definitely, so it's like we had the budget to do things we weren't able to do in a lot of narrative stuff. And to Harris's point on when we were talking about the difference between commercial and film is like, I mean, you have that opportunity in commercials to kind of experiment and go a little bit away from what you would do in a narrative film. And I think of them as two different like creative mediums, and you can kind of like apply yourself differently to each one. So it's nice to shoot a movie and kind of have that vibe on set and kind of a different end goal, and then go and shoot a commercial. It's kind of like it's instant gratification, and also like you get to try something that you might not have been able to do on a film set.
From the chat, Francisco Stars, Carlos was asking about your film Breach and which had come first, because it's also a Bruce Willis film, and so I think that's what you were alluding to when you're talking about the 15-day shoot.
Yes, so John and I shot a movie called Breach, which was a 15-day film, and we had Bruce Willis for 3 days, and he was in 60 scenes, which ended up being like 60 pages. So we had pretty much had to shoot him out in 3 days, 20 pages a day, and which is crazy. But so that's how we met Bruce. And yes, it was before this. It was about a year before Die Hard. And I don't know if John wants to weigh in on that, but I feel like it was helpful that he had the knowledge of how to work with Bruce and on a pace like that.
Yeah, I think that was something that, when we were talking with the marketing arm and with Advanced Auto Parts, it was nice that we'd had that experience. So we were kind of had a good strategy and approach and all that stuff, and knew how we like to work. And so that was definitely helpful when we were plotting how to best utilize all our time on the set for this one.
It would seem it would make you ideal for this as a team. And I was wondering, Amanda, where did you see yourself when you sort of were thinking about what am I going to do? And are you close, by being in this world, are you close to that, or did it exceed your expectations of your possibilities? Because that's one of the things the class wants to know, is what paths are available to them.
Yeah, I actually figured it out when I was applying for colleges, and I was like, oh, I only really like TV and books. And at the time, books were dying, print was dead. So I was like, better figure out how to get into TV and movies. I am also mostly from narrative, which is how I know John, and mostly actually almost exclusively do commercials with John. So that's sort of how I got into the commercial world. I think it's super fun. I am someone who likes to do things on a project by project basis and be like, wow, it's over and like it's out and I have something to show that I did this year. I came from development in comic books, where you'll literally spend like 10 years on a project and they'll be like, no, now like women are in and now women are out. And so you're just like constantly chasing what is like supposed to be trendy, and it takes years to get a project off the ground. And then even after it's shot, it might not go anywhere. And commercials are just sort of a much more condensed timeline where you're not doing as much hard work for very little reward, I think.
And I was wondering, Matt, did you how did you get to this position? Is this something that you were in communications or marketing or filmmaking? How did you? This really is something that the students want to see, how we lay these boards to sort of cross into industry.
I studied design in school, and what really that allowed me to do is be able to communicate ideas simply and quickly to people, so I could pitch an idea. And I've worked corporate settings, agency settings, and a number of years on my own. And so that was really my route into this business at large. But I went from working at an agency to I had pitched a television show, landed that, and that kind of opened up various opportunities in different mediums.
Fantastic. So Kyle Soehngen, I'm so sorry I tossed you out when I was trying to get you off the grid. So Kyle is a graduate of our program. He went to the American Film Institute as a director with great aspirations of doing feature-length films. And I think out of all our students, probably do a lot of commercial work or have done a lot of commercial work since we last talked. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I'm still working toward the feature film aspect of things as well. But and I don't want to take up too much time because, and just to clarify, I have nothing to do with this particular commercial that I do love, but I did not work on that, so I just don't want to make any confusion. But it's a wonderful spot. Yeah, it's afforded me the ability to be a filmmaker, if that makes sense, and to continue practicing filmmaking. And as everyone already said, it's really exciting because whereas traditional narrative projects do take a long time to get off the ground, the turnaround times on these things are so quick, and it lets you try things, from a different point of view, right? And experiment in ways that you may not on a narrative film. So it's something I've enjoyed quite a bit. It's not what I set out to do, but it's I think it keeps you sharp, and it's just a lot of fun, in my opinion. The short projects are fun to see them just out there and trying new things over and over again.
I'm gonna ask one question of all of you in this current grid, and then I'm gonna have Kynan sort of address to the questions on the chat. So I'm giving a heads up, Kynan, to sort of go through and look at what you think needs to be foregrounded. And I have, I'm really sensitive, Will, to any time I deal with future and expanded cinema, which I think is very, AR, VR. And every time I do anything, they always refer to everything I do as having toys, and I respond to it exactly as you did. So I really apologize for using what I take umbrage at you during one of these panels. They are tools. They're tremendous tools. And I'm going to ask this of every one of you. If you could give these students 2 or 3 sentences of hope, of direction, and advice, what would they be?
Well, first off, I was very angry that you said that. No, I'm kidding. I agree with you. Yes, they're toys, they're also tools. So that maybe they're both. I don't know.
No, but I think they're tools. I just always throw that.
I didn't mean to come off as if I was like really. It's a joke between me and Amanda and John.
Yeah, it's an inside joke because somebody on a shoot sometime was like, "Well, he can't get all his toys" or something like that. He's like, "They're tools." So it's an inside joke. I
didn't mean to come off. Sorry.
It hurts when people say it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm very curious. We have a lot of cinematographers. I look at the group of students. They'd like to hear from you what they should do. Where should they go?
Well, I think they're already on the right path. I mean, I personally didn't go to film school. And I wish I did. Like, I feel like not only do you learn a lot, and I'm very interested in, I'm kind of learning the history of film and not only technical aspects of the job, but so I think they're already on the right path, and they're starting young, and just to continue to get out and shoot. And what I try to tell younger people is like, not necessarily every piece is going to be like a masterpiece. So at least try to take away one major lesson from each thing you shoot. And even if the thing ends up not being great, it's like, okay, well, now I know what happens when I move the camera this way, or now I know what happens when I underexpose a little too much, or always take away at least one lesson from what you're doing and apply that to the next one. It's baby steps, and you're slowly building up, and everyone is, even Wally Pfister and Roger Deakins are always learning, and just continue on that path, and you'll do great.
Thank you so much, Will. John, I'm going to turn it back to you, because I think there used to be a thing when you asked how many of you want to direct, everybody would raise their hand. And now people say, I want to be a showrunner, I want to edit, because a lot of the computers they grew up with had editing software. So there's a large portfolio of possibilities for them. And so in this program, one of the gifts we give them is we don't track them out. So basically, if Kyle said, I want to be a director, we don't force him to take those classes. He can find his disposition. And I was wondering if there was anything that sort of a light that said, I'm a director. And if so, could you tell us a little bit about when that happened for you? And
Yeah, I mean,
what the advice would be for the next few steps?
yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny. I mean, when I was younger, it's like they just started having a video class when I was like a junior in high school. So I took it, but I actually originally, it's funny you should say that, like I originally wanted to be an editor. So I needed to have stuff to edit. So I started shooting things. So it's kind of a little bit of a backwards path to it where, you know, you can't edit if you don't have any footage. So you know, and speaking of what Will is saying, like, you always hate most of the stuff you make after you know, a couple years after you've made it. And, but I think what's amazing for all your students is that with how technology is, you have the opportunity to, you can make really good content for next to nothing. And actually my first 3 feature films I made were all for under 20 grand. So I was just sort of, you know, had a camera and like with a couple of friends in college, like we went out and shot these movies that are just terrible that I have not watched since college, but I learned a lot by all the mistakes I made. So, and I think the 2 other things I'd say, so you all can just go make stuff, which that's the way to improve and to keep getting better is to keep making stuff, you know. And then the 2 other things I think are important is one is, which it took me a while to get better about this, is learning to take feedback. Because I think there's a while when you're first starting out where you're like, I remember in film school, you know, and I think film school is really crucial for this, getting all these notes. And like, if I made a short film and in my head, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, cool. You guys are all wrong. Got it. You know, like as if everybody in the class said something was wrong with my short, but I thought that they were all wrong and I was right. And having that attitude, I think prevents you from the last thing which Will touched on, which is that you're always learning. You know, every project you do, you make mistakes. And the important thing is not repeating those mistakes. And as soon as you think you've got it all figured out, then you're not going to grow as an artist or as a filmmaker. And so those are the big things. And I think all of us on this panel can attest to that there's never a project where you're like, well, did everything right, great, you know. And if you repeat mistakes, that's where you get yourself into trouble. You know, it's you know, you can make new ones, but you got to learn from the previous ones.
Thank you, sir. Harris, can we, some advice?
Well, I will say what Will said, I would echo that. I really wish I had gone to film school, and I really wish I hadn't dropped the typing class because I'm a full-time writer and I still don't know how to type. I think that the important thing is, and both guys have really kind of covered this, it's that you continue to improve even with the projects that are a disaster. Like any writer who's honest will tell you they've spent months writing something that is awful. I mean, that happens. But you do take lessons from that and you get better and better. And they say it's, you know, the 10,000 hours. So I can speak more from that side because when I produce, it's purely as a creative producer. I don't have the vernacular or the skill set that John or Will have. And I wish I did, and I appreciate it. And I think I have a sense of it, but I couldn't do it. But just as the writing side, and I think with any creative endeavor, you have to make it sort of an obsession or a compulsion. It can't be a hobby. It has to be something that if you don't do it, your day isn't complete. You know, I always find time to write on my own things, no matter how busy I am, even with the ad job. Like you have to make it that sort of continued habit and obsession and compulsion. And you get better and better and better. And the rewards for a lot of this kind of craft, they take a while to gain, you know, and everyone hears it again and again. There's no such thing as an overnight success, but every student is probably the way, you know, what Suit said, like you assume it's a masterpiece when you first write it or edit it or shoot it. And it takes you a long time to be able to look back and say, okay, maybe it wasn't. And I now finally, like, I've been doing it long enough to realize it's never a masterpiece, but you can see incremental improvement and you just have to put the time in. There's no silver bullet. No matter how innately gifted someone is, you still have to put the time in to kind of hone the craft, whatever that craft may be.
Thank you so much, Harris. Matt, I just some advice to someone who might already be in design. We have a very good design program in the art department. Some hope.
Well, I don't do a lot of design anymore, but that was my 20 years ago. Thinking about what to share was just kind of echoing what Harris and John both said, but from a different perspective. And that's from the person whose job as a producer is to parties together, to match talent, to find people that will work and fit the project. You know, someone's going to be able to work with Harris and Nick and their strong POV, and someone like John and his team that are able to really be able to work opportunistically with a spirit of discovery. And, you know, when we looked at just taking a step back, when we were looking at different directors and different production companies here, what we liked about John and his group were the fact that he did all these independent movies, right? And it doesn't matter if they were good or bad or anything. The fact that he had grind for years gives me a lot of confidence, and that someone knows how to figure something out, right? It doesn't have to be, if something goes wrong, and it always does go wrong, there's always surprises. For someone to be able to have the tenacity and the ability to solve that problem in that moment. Because for this particular production, we're looking 4 overnight shoots. That's a brutal, brutal schedule. It's a lot of pressure with a lot of different challenging obstacles at play, COVID being a huge part, huge celebrities being in and out of camp, a huge part, attorneys, and on a scale of this production with companies that are large, that are looming behind me to make sure that everything is locked in, we're doing everything correctly. So, you know, I'm thinking my job on this particular project was pretty massive. But back to John, and as a filmmaker and as a student, that would be appreciative. The fact that he did make all of those smaller films was hugely important, for at least from my perspective, that he could get in there, mix it up. And I know that John, I've worked on other projects in the past, but really thought he'd be just such a good fit for this project.
Thank you, Matt. Amanda.
Yeah, just real fast. I
go ahead,
I don't think anyone else could have pulled it off, honestly, besides natural selection. That's
Thank you, Darren. Matt.
Amanda?
Yeah.
UNLV is known to be one of the most diverse universities in the nation. Our program has gone from 30 years ago having the normal film school formation of a bunch of gentlemen who were interested in film, to being about half and half, with very strong female leadership in every area, directing, screenwriting, and so on. And it's wonderful for me to have seen that change. I was wondering what you could say to everyone, and to the women, and what it's like for you in the industry, and if you changes you've seen, and obviously past COVID, where are we going? If you feel I'm putting you in a strange position to represent every woman who's working in this industry and what the hope is. But I mean, we have a lot of representation in that in the program. We're very excited about it. So I think that they want to hear.
Yeah. I've been very fortunate, definitely on these sets where, all the guys we work with are very respectful. I came out of college in 2009. And at the time, it was a lot more different. When I was an assistant, I had an older boss who regularly called me honey and baby. And people, just to be totally frank, like I didn't get a job right out of college because it was like a bunch of dudes who, like, a friend of mine worked there who was a guy and told me the reason I didn't get the job was because they were worried they would have to like censor themselves with like a woman in the office. So times are a lot better now, I think, in terms of being a woman in the workplace, even from 10 years ago. I used to get comments like, oh, wow, pretty and smart. And like, people think that's a compliment. And you're like, not really. So I think we're in a much better place now. And I think people are actively trying to hire women, which I don't think is even necessary. I think you just don't want to be like at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And anything else that you might want to talk about in terms of where you feel the industry is going from? We don't know if we're closing theaters or careers in commercials. Should they go in that direction? Should their portfolio be amplified? Was this where you saw yourself when?
Yeah, so I think a thing that I think it's important when you come out of, or when you're in school, is to like, I think people talk a lot about networking in the film business, and obviously that's like a huge part of it, is like who you know. But you tend to think of networking as networking up to people who are like more experienced than you. And while that's a big part of it, I think you need to remember that your peers are the people who are going to be in, you know, in the sticks with you throughout. And they're the people that you can work with now to like get more content for yourself and to practice with and to play with, and they will eventually be in places where they can hopefully hire you. So, you know, I think it's just really important to like maintain your relationships with your peers, and consider like, you know, you might not have a lot of like financial resources to make things with, but you do have time, and helping each other in terms of donating your time to each other to make your passion projects is like a really nice thing that you can hopefully afford to do while you're still in school.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. And Nick, I'm so sorry, Mr. Chernock, for sort of losing you in the flood of all our guests. Any words of advice? Any steps that you can put a light to?
Yeah, I would just say, and no worries, we were all still here. I would just say be flexible, be open, be nimble. I worked in theater as an actor for over a decade in Los Angeles. And when that became unsustainable for me and in my life circumstances, I was fortunate enough to find some connections, and that led me to the current kind of place I am in life. And what I've found was that desire to be creative and make something was still able to translate into the work I do today. And you know, I think instead of just being unhappy with what I wasn't able to do anymore, I was able to fortunately be surrounded by people who gave me opportunities to continue to make things. And, you know, it's just, I think all it took was understanding that even though that skill set was one thing, it can still translate, right? I'm still telling stories. We're all still making things that are meant to land on an audience to affect them in an emotional manner. So, you know, as much as we all might have our best laid plans for the way things might work out for our career, what we want our path to be, I will guarantee you that will almost not work out the way that you'd expect it right now. And if you just kind of go ahead and get okay with that, you'll probably be better off 10 years from now, where you're doing something you never would have imagined, but that might be more fulfilling than you could have ever expected.
Thank you so much. So Kyle, I know that your involvement in the project is that you've seen Die Hard several times, but your relevance in terms of wanting to bring you into classes, that you're a graduate from our program, and you sat there and took several critiques from your professors in your directing classes, and yet you moved forward and decided to go to AFI and continued and still continue and still aspire to do that. What could you tell the students today to you know, not just stay home?
Yeah, no, I think I've got a couple things, and you know, the first one kind of echoes a bit of what a lot of the others have said so far, in that I think, you know, don't be afraid to fail and get out there and just make stuff, because, you know, we've all made bad work, right? And as you're learning, you're going to have stuff that's rough around the edges. And I think it's important to, like, the more often you fail, the more mistakes you make, the more you're going to hone in on what does work. And it's only going to make you a better filmmaker, a better writer, a better designer, a better creative, whatever, you know, it is you want to do. And so I think that, you know, for me was a difficult lesson. And I think that fear can prevent you from making stuff. So I think, you know, just make things often and accept what they are and move on to the next thing is only going to make you a better filmmaker and artist. And then, you know, the other thing that I think is important is filmmaking and a lot of creative endeavors can be all consuming at times, or at least feel that way. And especially when we exist in this world where it seems like, you know, everyone is posting on Instagram or something like that, how, you know, great their filmmaking career is, or what, you know, writing career or whatever, which is fake, by the way. I think it's important to have things outside of that world though, too. And that's only going to make you a better filmmaker and artist, right? It's important to sort of not define yourself entirely by this alone. You know, and find other things out there that you can draw upon in your own artwork, I think is important, whatever that may be. Because I think it is really easy to sort of fall into the idea that, you know, like your entire life is filmmaking and filmmaking alone. And if that's it, that 10 years for that overnight success might feel a lot longer, So those are kind of my two big bits to pass along.
It's great to have you back here, sir. And Clarence, you said something very interesting in class on Wednesday in terms of the changes you were seeing in our culture as a film department, and how that was sort of fueling you and feeding you as you talked to our students on our last class. And I want to thank you for making it possible for all these wonderful guests to be here at the same time. And I was wondering if you had some thoughts about what the experience, because we talked about, and you said I don't look back and I move forward, and yet here you were coming back to this, to this character that people refer to and is far away from who you are now.
I think for me, just like all of the other artists that we're so blessed to have you today be here. All of us, all of the people that I got to work with, thank you for making me a part of this team. All of us are looking for the horizon. We're seeking something. We may not be able to put our finger on it, but there's something about the palette, the composition, the choreography, whatever you want, that we're all after. I know that I am, and I'm sort of a parasite as far as an educator is concerned, because I draw upon the inspiration and the energy of my students in my studios to fuel me. And then what happens is, as a peripatetic educator, I go out and I work, do a film here and indie there, a couple of years, and I bring that back into the classroom for the street cred to cross-pollinate. But what's happening because of the COVID, and because, as I say this all the time, I am one of the original analog dinosaurs. I don't know nothing about technology. I can play a computer whiz, but I don't know nothing about it. I am aware that the students are making great strides in adapting in the studio, in our advanced directing initiative, that is making me wonder what's going to happen when we're done with this. Let's say 6 months from now, and we're all on the pavement again, and we have had this, for us in our advanced directing initiative with the directors and the editors and the cinematographers. What is the student going to look like? Because I'm so amazed by what the student is producing right now in the classroom. And I got to be on this kind of project at this time in my creative journey. And that can't be lost, because the context is going to bear itself out for all of us, whatever department we're in. It's going to bear itself out in the way we tell stories, in the why we tell the stories, right? In the kind of stories that we create, right? For people like me to flesh out. I see the young directors and cinematographers and actors and editors, I see them adapting, through this. I'm Clarence Zoom Gilyard legally now. I see them in my space, in their space. I see them rising to the occasion and being passionate about, I gotta get this for when this is over. For when this is over. I'm very excited about that, because when you're in this classroom, when you're in the assembly hall and the students are all there and you're doing what we do, professors, I'm wondering constantly, are they making a move? Are they getting it? Are they making the notes? Is there somebody out there that's going to give me a job in 5 years, right? But with this format, it's very evident to me, and it's a step up. And so I think that's what spurred me to ask these professionals to come in, so that the students could see on their own terms, in a sense, that these people are amazingly creative and amazingly collaborative, amazingly driven, but they're human. They're human, just like the students. And so we'll see next semester, as it were.
Wendy, any words of advice?
I mean, obviously, so I come from, for sure, the business background, as opposed to the film / more artistic background. But I think that in terms of building a career, I think the principles apply irrespective of which type of path you decide to take. And I think a couple of pieces of advice I would have is, first of all, explore and be clear about where you want to go. That would be first and foremost, to ultimately determine an objective, which, by the way, could very well change over time. I think we were listening to Matt Williams talking earlier, who started in design and then ended up taking a couple of different turns to end up where he is today. But exploring to be able to have a clear objective, number one. Number two, based on that objective, get information and move around, meet people, listen, open up doors for yourself along that path. And then the third point would be to, on some regular basis, I probably sound like the very square nerd in this case, very unartistic, but on a periodic basis, you'll need to, take stock and reassess. And maintain those channels open for taking in information, and then reassess where you are and where you want to go. So that would be my suggestions as folks are getting ready to embark on their careers or make a change versus where they are today.
Wendy, thank you so much. Jason, we started the week talking together about what this was going to be like. Hopefully, you've been satisfied with the way we sort of have unpacked the talent of this group and the way that you were able to re-energize the brand and connect all these people together. What advice would you give to these students today?
First, the session's totally delivered. It's actually done a lot to drive energy in me, candidly. Love listening to all these folks and about their passions. When listening, I'll give a visual about something someone taught me once. And I think it's very reflective of a variety of different careers. And it's something that's helped me unlock a lot of different experiences. And someone told me once, are you focused on climbing a ladder or are you focused on building a pyramid? And I immediately said, what? And they said, be careful no matter what career you're in, because if you're more focused on climbing a ladder of getting to this goal or an achievement or monetary success, you will get to the top or you'll get high on that ladder and the ladder will not be sturdy. You'll face obstacles and something could come by and knock that ladder over. And when you're on the ladder and that ladder knocks over, you then fall down and it hurts. They said you need to be more focused on building a pyramid. And a pyramid is obviously in that shape where you're building a foundation of experiences that you're doing in your life. And that's what it is. When you hear what everybody talked about, they all talked about connections. They talked about experiences. They talked about different journeys. And that reminded me of the analog of building a pyramid. So when I was young, I was there's a lot of this, for the people that know me, don't laugh, okay? Don't laugh. I used to go to leadership seminars. I used to be a wide receiver on a football team. I played basketball. I actually directed 3 one-act plays in high school. But you see the disparity and the diversity of that is because I never knew it at the time, but I was building a foundation of experience and it just led me to where I'm at today. So that piece of wisdom I got from someone was very valuable to me. So I spent my life now building a pyramid versus climbing a ladder.
Thank you so much. Kynan, this is your class. It's 3 o'clock. We have half an hour more with these very generous group of people. I will let you curate the questions and then we'll go for a wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of students have asked about Amanda. And so Carlos was asking about, when you're a producer, you're doing a bunch of different things, right? So the producer title is so vague and it doesn't really cover everything you're doing. And then you might be a script supervisor, you might be in casting. And so Carlos was asking about what parts of that you like the best. And Eden was asking about, more advice about how to be a producer, going forward for our students.
Yeah, so I guess I work in the production side on the producing end, so there's obviously a lot of different types of producer. You have the people who work more on the script side or like bring money in, and I came up on the production end, like working in the production, and I guess I like to think of my main job as making sure all the stuff shows up so that on the day all the stuff is there and no one freaks out.
So that's the kind of
I think that you need that role.
Mhm.
No, go ahead.
That's the kind of job that if you do everything right, people might not even notice that you've done anything. Is that fulfilling for you, or do you wish that there
Yes,
was
your
more?
goal is for no one to know who you are. No, the goal is for no
It's
one to
kind of
talk.
like a ref in an NBA game, right? You don't want to notice the refereeing going on, but you know that if the game is smooth and you get that experience right, it's there, right?
Kynan, could I ask a question?
Of course.
Hey, Matt, could you helm this, please? I'm curious about the wonderful female actor that ran the auto parts store, and if any of you could weigh in on giving her, not giving her earning that gig on that commercial in competition with other people around the country. Is it possible?
Sure. So casting on this project within the agency is very much of a collaborative piece of business. And Harris and Nick, go ahead and put your microphones on. We see the script, we have something in our mind, and then again, to everyone's, I think some kind of an overriding theme of this conversation is keeping your mind open, right, to opportunity, and to know where you're going and feel good about where you're going, to be open, and that's the same way with casting, right? We know what we want, but then once you get into session and these people are brought in front of you, then you can really kind of see where they can go. So let's see, John or Harris,
they were weird. They were hard casting sessions because it was all on Zoom. So there's definitely I mean, there was a big. It was hard to get past that a little bit of that disconnect. We looked at a lot of people. I'm sure Suits and Nick remember those were very, very long sessions because of the Zoom aspect. Made it a lot tougher.
It was Heather.
Can you speak to some of the give and take? Because there must have been 100 wonderful actresses coming in.
Yeah, what caught your eye, Harris, first of all?
Well, this woman well, actually, I do remember, and John and Nick and Matt, I wonder if you remember this too. She had, I think, improv singing while dusting. She was singing the 21st of September. What's that song? Do you remember? Yeah. So she made us laugh. There was the audition made us really laugh, and I think that was probably part of it. And she definitely kind of fit that. She just had this vibe. Of course, she showed up to set, and I think had no idea who she'd be acting opposite. So there was, I'm sure, a moment there of, oh wow, a moment of revelation for her. But I do remember that about the audition, guys. I don't know if there's anything else you really recall.
One thing that I really remember, her name is Heather Adair. She won the role in the callback. She killed her callback. So, Clarence, I'm sure you might echo this with some of the actresses. I remember when I was acting in LA, my agent always said, your job is just to get to the callback. After that, it's kind of, off the table. But with this one, she really moved herself to the top of the list with that callback by being funny, like Harris said. But I think many times when you think of this is totally one of the there are no small parts things, right? Because even though, it's not like a long segment, it's the employee representing the brand that this whole spot was about. But also she's acting, opposite Bruce Willis and has to stand up and appear and makes it look like she belongs with all of you who have long and storied careers. So she owned the Zoom screen for the 5 minutes we had the callback with her and like just won it. I think after that we were all like, oh, she's the one.
That's powerful. That's a powerful statement. The other thing, one of the things, me casting all the time with my theater companies, she has an amazing resonance in her voice. If you hear her, I would wonder what it would be like juxtaposed or up against some of the other actresses, because with the composer for the music for the commercial, her voice really does, it's part of it. Would you agree, Harris, in a sense?
I think so. There was something innately chipper about her. She felt authentically like she could be behind the counter. I mean, it was very important to cast someone who felt, real. We didn't want someone who came across as super actorly. We wanted someone who looked authentically like they'd be there and really kind of enjoy that role. And there's it did make us laugh, like her different takes. The guy crashes through a window, and there were some lines, I think one of them was like, well, what brings you in tonight? I mean, there was stuff that was very funny coming off that moment, but she kind of looked and felt the part. And Nick's right, like that callback just brought a lot of energy to it, and wasn't afraid to play. And, Clarence, this, obviously, as an actor. Some people come in and really stick to script and really need to be guided, but it helps, especially with a piece like this, when you have someone who has a improvisational energy and isn't afraid to kind of stretch and kind of toy with it a little bit. You have to, I think, be brave enough and comfortable enough in your own talent to do that. So it's an important sign. So then when we get them on set, we know they can deliver this job.
And that piece of singing actually was integrated in the creative and a post as we went forward. It became critical.
Yeah, because, and I love what you said, Harris, I love what you said. You used the adjective chipper. I love that quality. It really does lend itself to, some strange man busting through my window as I'm getting ready to close shop.
Do you know what's interesting about that too was that moment, if you go back to the day of the shoot on that section, was Harris, your point around improv and having the insight there, that line in the spot that is in there was not in the script.
Outstanding.
Right? That line in the spot is, we have free installation. That was that line right there was John and Harris. I remember taking the line, talking to John. They went, "Oh yeah, it sounds good," and then they went and fed it. But she drilled it. I think it was the last line that she'd ever shot, and it was literally a moment because you knew she could carry off the improv. And I thought that was a good example of how this team worked, right, Clarence? How this team worked, to your point, and the insight there.
And if I could just give you a short anecdote, McTiernan doing John's job 30 years ago, take after take after take after take, saying to me, okay, I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna roll the camera. And that's where Quarterback is Toast came from, just like what you just said.
Oh my God, the quarterback is toast.
That was me on the day. Just, I don't know where I got it from. I got it from someplace, a comic book or something that I heard or something like that. But that's what happens. And that quality that you referenced, Harris, is something that I want the students to embrace.
And I want to put one of our students on microphone now. Eden, if you have a microphone. So Eden wanted to talk to Amanda about advice for young producers. Eden is a director, editor, actor extraordinaire, one of our greatest critical studies students, but also a producer.
And a director, and an editor.
That was the first thing I said, but go ahead.
The list is endless, but yeah, I loved hearing about your experience in the industry and how it's changed, Amanda. But yeah, I just really want to know what advice you'd give to just up and coming women who are trying to enter into the industry.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. It's a tricky place to enter into, and it's hard because a lot of my advice would be like, don't be afraid to work for free and don't be afraid to help people out. But at the same time, the other piece of advice is like, know your value and don't get taken advantage of, and don't work for free when other people, when you don't have to. So I think that's like a very conflicting concept that I still struggle with a lot myself, of like, you want to work with as many people as possible and build those relationships. And there is a sense of like, if I help you, you will help me on a different project, versus just like, I'll work for you for below my value and you know, it's compromised my own value in my career. So I think that's just something that I continue to navigate myself. But I think it's sort of up to your gut of like, you know, will doing something for someone, you know, will that help you, or will you feel like you've been taken advantage of? I think that's sort of where you'll find a lot of conflict. But I think the main thing for me has just been like being open to opportunities and like accepting different types of jobs, just because the producer role is so varied. You know, like I had barely done any commercials when I started working with John, because I mostly came from narrative, but it was like a fun thing to jump into. And I think your skill set can apply like across a lot of different levels.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Carlos, you do have a microphone. Are you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. With considering the how well received this commercial has been uniformly, are there any thoughts of doing follow-ups in a similar vein?
That's a great question.
That's a great question, huh,
That's
Jason?
an incredible question, Carlos.
It was around holiday. We actually did a little bit around taking it, doing a little bit of a spoof off the current spot around it being a holiday film. So that was the one little piece off of the extension. Usually, in anything that you do from a creative standpoint, the best way to answer that question is, Carlos, right? The best way to answer that question is you'll have to wait and see. And the reason I say that like that is because I've challenged the team to, continue to see what we could do to not only develop or bring the story out to life even more, but also you're going to continue to challenge the team to obviously to make some breakthrough work again after. So I don't think we're done yet, but it's like there's a lot of things that this team is going to continue to build on as we look at the future. And purposely, we didn't think about afterwards until we launched it. So I guess I'm going to tease you by saying we're going to have to see what this team comes up with.
Okay, that's very cool. Thanks, Carlos. We had a question for Will, and for the look of the film. It feels like a Die Hard movie without looking like 1988's Die Hard. So I was wondering about how you achieved that look. Were you thinking about the more recent sequels to Die Hard, or was it like, oh, if I have, now I have my own chance to make my own Die Hard movie?
Yeah, so the way we kind of approached it, John and I kind of bounced back and forth on a lot of different references, and we wanted it to still feel like it's in the Die Hard universe. But like you said, we reference a lot from newer Die Hards, but also other like popular action films, like John Wick was a big influence, and a few others. But yeah, it was kind of riding the line of maintaining that sort of like witty or a little kind of zinger comical vibe while it's still being like a big action piece, and trying to navigate that. So yeah, and from there we just kind of had fun with it, and we're like, does this look cool? Yeah, it looks cool. Do that.
Not like parodying other ones, but sort of, using just as a reference like you would for any other feature film.
Yeah, I think that for, again, John and I coming from the feature world, we kind of approached it as that. And that's what was kind of fun, because like what we were talking about earlier, it was like getting to shoot a 4-day indie, but like, yeah, with a few more things to play with, and a little bit more money, and talent like Clarence and Bruce, obviously, and everyone. So it was definitely a lot of fun.
Right.
There are the part that I love the most, being it, and Will did this amazingly with John and the team, and in the script writing, was the number of references there are in the 2-minute spot to the Die Hard series. And my last count after I keep watching is I'm in the 20s. Okay. So it could be anywhere from, if you look over my shoulder, you'll see Christmas lights, like in the streets of these. That was a subtle little play to it being a Christmas movie, to obviously the infamous vent scene or some lines in the thing that was done. But this team did a masterful job of finding all these little, I don't know what, Harris, did you call them Easter eggs? Easter eggs throughout the film that both either visual Easter eggs or audible Easter eggs that really was masterful.
John, I just, you have this unique opportunity to work with Bruce again, and it speaks volumes to the way that you shot close to 20 pages a day for the 3 days you had him, that he was obviously not asking to have you not be the person directing this commercial. What was that like to work with him on a feature, make that happen in 3 days, and then to sort of re-encounter him in this?
Yeah, what was really fun about it is he also has a whole team of people that are really great. And so it was just fun seeing all of them again, and I think also it was nice to work on in this context where we could be much more specific about what we were trying to do versus Will will remember, like, on the movie, when he showed up on set, it was like, you're sprinting, running like a 100-yard dash for 10 hours straight. Just go. So there was never like any time to do anything. So even though we had it sounds like doing a 2-minute spot in 4 days, like you had plenty of time, but there's a lot of pieces to this. So it still is actually a very aggressive schedule with all the, action beats and stunts and effects and stuff like that. But it was nice to be able to really be more specific, and with the whole team here, we all really, worked out all those beats, and there definitely was a lot of improv, which was fun. But just in terms of the storyboards, and it was actually really great working with Advanced Auto Parts with Jason and Wendy and their team on that too. It's like, I think before we shot, like, everyone had a pretty good sense of what we were doing, and all the beats of that. Whereas, in that, it sounds like that beat should be constrained, but it's actually quite liberating, because it's like, all right, here's the framework. And so we were capturing that. And then also we're seeing, like, where's little moments to adjust or pivot. And there's a lot of fun. Like I was saying, with like what Clarence was doing is, we were giving him different lines and different things to try, but he also just kept bringing so much energy to everything he was doing. That's what made us start feeding him different lines, because we're like, this is awesome. And it was so much more exciting than how it was written, that it was like, everybody's like, okay, well, what else can we throw at him? Because it was like, we loved what he was doing. So I think there's a lot of that as well, which was a fun part of it.
Thank you. Kynan, back to you.
Yeah, I did have a question about the writing of it, for Harris and Nick. And so much of the spot is the dialogue isn't about the product necessarily, right? We don't have voiceovers. I think I read something where John was talking about this. This isn't a spot about price point. It's not a spot about even product. It's about the idea of the brand, and that feels kind of daunting to me, right? To try to convey all of that stuff without having the safety net of someone saying, "Oh, here's all this technical information I want you to know about DieHard." And I wonder how you approach that.
Well, the biggest gift that the Advanced Auto Parts team gave us was the trust and the sort of alignment at the beginning. And just like John said, we knew what we were doing together, and the point was to make a film where the battery was organically woven into the story, and that the main character needed one, like you do sometimes, and it played out naturally from there while being true to the movie and the characters, right? So you're going to get the fact that the battery did its job in the storytelling, but it would have been a big misstep, I think, in all of our opinions, to have tried to waste this IP on just trying to focus on, little points about the product or price points and things like that, right? So they had great faith that if we were going to be doing a storytelling at a higher level that is brand awareness in marketing terms, that the rest of the stuff would fall into place, which Wendy was speaking to earlier. And we're all happy that it seems like that's happening, but it really took agreement from the very beginning, because otherwise I think we could have gotten into trouble very quickly.
Yeah, it's a great point. Also, it worked so well that the product was, it's really his co-star, that was kind of the magic, is that you could have, we joked that at one point we were actually pushing the product at the viewer's face, like when he's in the vent. We joked about it, but actually it made sense in the story. You don't often get like that kind of synergy, but he's carrying it throughout the story, but it's not like someone's shoving in like like a product placement. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's just he needs to get his car started, and then these things come after him, and so the fact that it was so integral to the story versus either shoehorned in or just kind of this thing at the end, if you look at like the work is brilliant, but you look at a Geico campaign and it's not really about the problem. It just sort of comes in and uses you, and then the product comes in at the end. This was a very different construct. Like from the beginning, the battery was woven into the story. And I think that, so much credit, Nick's correct, like so much credit is due to the Advanced Auto Parts team really for the trust and the bravery. But as Jason had said, when he said, make me uncomfortable, he put out that challenge. But I think this created a good bridge for us all, where it was like, it'd be hard to watch and not come away, with Die Hard and with Advanced Auto Parts, but it just felt organic to the story.
No, I was just going to say, building on what Harris said, and obviously as the marketer, you want to make sure that what the audience and the correct target is taking away at the end of the day is the memory of your brand and how it did save the day. But this whole piece went so far beyond that. And when we look at just the verbatims of viewers, whether it was left on our YouTube channel or anywhere in the cyber universe, talking about the joy, basically, that this whole reunion of a story that is so near and dear to people's hearts, Clarence's role inclusive, the fact that the impression of our brand was just as strong as the joy and excitement that this brought to viewers is really, my hair still stands up, because you've hit magic when you're eliciting that type of excitement from viewers about a product that ultimately at the end of the day you're trying to sell. I mean, really, this was a piece of magic.
Right.
And I want to say one more thing about the script before we move on, is that so creative gets it to a really great place, and we're talking about it, and I'm like, that's great, but we have COVID here, so there's no 2 shots, there's no fight sequences. Pull those out. Nick, Harris, figure this out. We have to be able to do this in such a way we're going to be able to achieve and check all these boxes and create this beautiful thing, but you have to re-engineer it. And then giving those same challenges to John and to Will. How are you going to take, there's no 2 shots anymore, how are you going to create that, get that energy, So
Clarence, go ahead.
Fantastic job.
I just want to comment real quickly for the students that they take notice of the brain surge that's in this this forum right now, and how they're continuing to collaborate. And they still have that sense of eyes on the prize. Everybody is still focused on the main goal that came out of the first time that they got in the car and they went to the CEO's office. This is something that is invaluable from this forum for the students, is that in a film school, you better figure out teamwork and collaboration and eyes on the prize. Everybody's about the one thing, and still they are today. This is amazing to me. Thank you.
Well, the very first question we had in the chat was about you, Clarence, and we can give you just a minute to answer that. And also Julia is now asking, the fact that the students saw you working and how you're a very humble person, you're a very private person, frankly, after knowing you for 15 years. And sometimes we'll say, Clarence, do you know that you were in Die Hard? Because you don't really wear it on your sleeve. And so somebody at the beginning, Joe, was asking about what brought you to UNLV and what do you like about it? And Julia was just mentioning that, she really appreciates seeing you work.
Well, first of all, I do have Die Hard pajamas. And now I have I'm hoping that the Advanced Auto people will send me some of those gifts that they gave out at the 70,000 forum. I really am on board with these kind of people. Let me just say in short that it's my parents. My dad was a serviceman, and after he got out of the military for 21 years, he went to university. And that's it. He went to university and he sat at our dining room table and he got his undergraduate degree and he got his graduate degree, and I helped him. I I helped him through Spanish. He wouldn't have gotten through Spanish without me, and I typed his papers. And so I knew as I started working my right side of my brain that I was going to be an artist, but that education was necessarily a part of my DNA. And I don't think that, I mean, because I have, like I said, I have dreams for the future. I don't think that I would be so pumped, so energetic if it wasn't for the university collegial community. That's it.
Well, I think that's really great. I don't think we have any other burning notes. Let's just really thank this team, and starting from Jason, who was saying, putting out a brief saying, "Make me uncomfortable," and then allowing the teams to do that. Everyone's been super excited that the UNLV family has been even tangentially related to all of this. So let's give them all a big round of applause and for their time and their honesty and and their wisdom. Thank you so much. That was really great.
And I have to confess to all of you that, whenever you have these many people here, Jason and I kind of created a road visually of where we were going to go. And I think, as he was saying, it met his expectations. And I think as the artistic director of the program, I can tell you it exceeded mine in terms of what you could bring to the students. And I just want to share with you that I have two things that lift up my computer. One is a Jaws board game, and the other one is a DieHard board game that I still unwrapped because nobody can come over to my house to play. But it does show my love for Clarence and my love for the film, and a real appreciation for you. I know our chair, Heather Addison, who doesn't like to be put on camera in these moments, has texted how appreciative she is of you being here today. We're appreciative of
Can
it.
I say a quick word?
Oh, Professor, let me put you on camera.
Well, I was just putting something in the chat, but now I'll just say it.
Okay.
You all, I just wanted to thank you all so much for being here. We always talk about the UNLV film family. We take that very seriously for all of our students and faculty, but now all of you can consider yourselves honorary members of the UNLV film family. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're never going to forget this session. It was incredible. So maybe a final round of applause for our guests.
Absolutely.